Part 2 of our 13 questions that will define the 21-22 Phoenix Suns season, coming up with Suns beat writer Duane Rankin right after this.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, credentialed media member covering the Suns the past 5 seasons, and your host here every single day. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single morning. We are just a few days, Duane, away from the first Suns preseason game. Thank you for joining me for my season preview series here. How are you, sir?
All right. How you doing?
Good. How has it been seeing the Footprint Center, or I'm sorry, the practice facility, rather? I have not gotten in there. You're one of the lucky few.
I wouldn't say I'm one of the lucky few. I'll just say I'm fortunate. But it's an incredible structure. You can see how $45 million was spent on it. I mean, it's just every amenity that a player could want is in there. And we're not even seeing the full scope of it. We're seeing the court, of course, but we're seeing the offices and the meeting rooms and stuff like that, but we're not even seeing it in its fullness. So just based on what we've seen, it's an amazing thing. No wonder the players are happy to come to work.
Yeah, look, it's part of my commute every so often, and I just kind of marvel at it. It's huge. They have the Verizon, the big logo on it at night that glows, and it's befitting of the area. But let's get right to it. Let's get right to question number 2 here of the 13 questions that will define the Suns season. I teased it to you a little bit. It revolves around the leadership of this Suns team, and really I have a more specific question later on, but the main way to frame it here is just how will James Jones and Monty Williams continue to lead this franchise? And so what I want to start with you on, Duane, is really how James Jones has been the same and different than you expected when he took this job, because he's such a behind-the-scenes dude that I feel like we got the executive of the year and everything last year, so the accolades came in for him, but still, like, he lingers behind the surface a little bit. So tell me what has been the same and different than your expectations of just how this guy has led this franchise.
I mean, the thing that I thought when he ended up getting the job was that it was going to be, I thought it would take them longer to get where they got. I didn't think it would. I didn't think it would have. He'd flip it like that. Not that he was the only one that did it. I mean, but I've been saying all along that hiring Monty Williams is the best move that he has made and the Suns have made since they made that move. So that to make that call to get Monty Williams out of being an assistant coach and make it appealing to the point where he decided that if he was going to jump back in, it was going to be with this franchise that had won 19 games the year before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talking about him. Monty might have been looking at that like, I'm not ready to go back to another losing situation, because that's what it was. I mean, let's just keep it honest. But things like that, you really start to discover why James got such praise for his ability to communicate while he was a player. Talking about his ability to connect, even when he's not even playing or hardly playing. He still had a voice in the locker room. So when you see what you've seen with him as far as the hire of Williams, helping convince Chris Paul, all the moves to get guys in, and Chris has seemed like he's become the recruiter now, and then getting guys to come in, but he had to be recruited to get here, and James had a say in that. So I think that part. Now looking back on it, it's like, I can see how he's able to make these relationships with people. But again, the surprise is just how quickly he was able to do it. He hadn't been in management but a minute. And then to be able to go from that to sitting in a I still have that visual of him sitting baseline at the Western Conference the Western Conference Finals, and him shaking hands with Chris and Devin and giving them high fives. And I'm sitting there going, like, he was just hired. It just felt like he was just hired. And now he's sitting there with the best team in the West.
Well, that's a great place to jump to the next thing that I am so surprised by about him, which is the fact that it's worked. I mean, like, so the relationship stuff makes sense, but it's the amount of times he's proven us wrong. You know, like, how many times have moves that he has made been criticized and none of them have turned out to be the mistakes that we thought that they were going to be, right? Like, drafting Cam Johnson, doing that trade. You had the Ricky Rubio contract. You had the Jalen Smith pick, which that one does remain to be seen a little bit, but he's done it his own way. He's dumped money. He's bought guys out that Suns fans weren't always happy to see bought out. He's traded, made trades that he didn't win every single time. And yet the results are obvious right there. Like you just said, the executive of the year, trip to the finals, young team, and able to bring it back and run it back and double down on that success. So that's been what's so surprising me. You've had the chance to sit down with him a few times for pretty long interviews in addition to just covering the team day to day. What do you think, like, have you ever talked about that with him in terms of like the perception of these things or how they're received among fans, or, the unorthodox way that he goes about it? Because it doesn't seem like he's fazed by this stuff, but he must be aware of it.
Well, you were talking about some of the moves that he made. The Ty Jerome one is one where I'm like, yeah, he made a lot of things happen to get the guy.
Mm-hmm. He did get Baines in that deal, though, right?
Yeah,
so
he did get Baines, and that probably was the better end of it, but still.
Young guy that did not work out at all.
Yeah, it didn't work out. And like you say, the Jalen Smith remains to be seen. But for the most part, he's made moves that, because of course, Dario came with the Cam Johnson. So to be able to bring him in, and then obviously, the home run with Chris, and then Crowder, and some of those moves, and then what he was able to do with getting Shamet, when he stopped having the G League team, that was criticized. It was like, come on, man, you need a G League team to develop young guys. Well, you don't hear that anymore.
And I don't know if that was ever his decision anyway, personally.
But he had to basically, in terms of when you're talking about developing a team, now that's got to be taken into account now. Sure. Which is why picks, he traded, he's okay with trading a pick, because not only was it low, obviously, in the draft, but then he ends up getting Shamet, who was a higher, as far as, a player that's been in the league, has been on good teams, and is more of a scorer than Javon Carter is. So it's almost like, and Carter's a popular guy. That's one of the things too. He's traded popular players. Carter, Oubre, Rubio, those three were favorites, and I think that he doesn't get caught up in, that it's more of, hey, look, how, where is this team at, and he's constructed it in a way where, it fits, guys fit with each other, and the chemistry and the bonding and all of that, but one of the things that I find interesting in just speaking with him is that he doesn't want to take credit for anything. I asked LeBron during All-Star Week, that All-Star one day, and I was like, hey, but how much credit should James Jones get by the Suns what the Suns have become? And he was like, well, you should get all the credit. Now, granted, him and LeBron are boys. They're tight. But LeBron puts that on Front Street and says, hey, James Jones should get all the credit. James Jones' response was, well, LeBron's my friend. That's my brother. I love him. But no, I'm not going to take all the credit. Now, this is not only the face of the league, but this is the face of the league for the last since he got in the league. So this guy is saying it, that it's gospel, and then for Jones to basically say thank you, but I'm just a piece of what's happened. That just speaks that he doesn't have this ego, which some people in his position, considering what he has done, quite frankly, would probably have. So and that's an impact. That's part of what makes him appealing to those who see him and see him do his job.
And it's trickled down, right? I mean, I think that a lot of what you just said about James would be how you define the culture of this team. And so as much as I just said, he kind of lurks behind the scenes a little bit, and we don't always see him front and center. He rarely gives press conferences, and he's by no means a Mark Cuban or Daryl Morey type that's going to be out there in front of everybody. He is he does impact the way that this group functions and operates. And so I agree with you, though. He is not one to claim that for himself or take that credit. But the other guy that I think he's more than happy to give that credit to, the guy you said was his favorite or your favorite of his moves, the one that's been the most impactful, is the hiring of Monty Williams. So let's transition to him really quickly here in our next segment. First, though, a quick word from Sleeper. In 2018, the fantasy sports experts at Sleeper looked at fantasy basketball, basically said it's broken. Teams were winning and losing just based on whose players had more games that week. And what they did is decide to fix it. They created the Game Picks fantasy basketball system, which allows users to pick one game per player per week, set their lineup only once per week, leave it be, and watch the points add up and the wins roll in. So you just set it that one time at the beginning of each week based on matchups, based on the defense that your guy's going to be playing against any given night, the pace of play, all the different things that matter, but you only have to do it one time. That is the most important thing. If you love fantasy football, it is very, very similar. Again, that is the Game Pick system. What you're going to do is go to the Sleeper app, download it, start a Game Picks league with your friends, and enjoy. It is that simple. Have fun. Think about it less mindless lineup setting, and more winning over at Sleeper. Today's show also brought to you by SweatBlock, the little secret to confidence right in your back pocket. That's right. It is a deodorant, but not like what you're thinking. It is not a stick. It's not something you got to bring, clunky, whatever, barely fits in your bag. It is, again, fits right in that back pocket because it's a wipe. You just open it up. It's like a wet nap. You apply it, they say, put it on before bed, go to sleep, and they say it lasts up to 7 days. Now, I know my Valley listeners probably don't buy that. They're worried, hey, I'm not going to wear deodorant multiple times in a day. And I get that. Use it up as many times as you need, but it works that well. Apply it before bed, and it'll last you at least through the whole next day. Stops that sweat, stops that odor in its tracks. So whether you've got a big presentation going on, you've got somebody new that you're catching up with, whatever the case may be, or you're just walking around in the valley sun, we know that can be plenty hot itself. Use SweatBlock, use that wipe, and cut that odor and cut that sweat out in its tracks. Go to sweatblock.com today to try it out. Use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to get 20% off your first order, or check these guys out at Amazon and CVS. Okay, Duane. So Monty Williams. You like the ads? You like the SweatBlock? Are you going to try it out? I feel like I'm sensing you're going to get some for yourself.
Don't think so. Don't think so. It sounds lovely for those who have that issue, but
Duane doesn't sweat, is what he's telling us. Anyone who sweats needs SweatBlock.
I don't have the armpit sweat issue. That's all.
I feel you.
But God bless those who do, and that sounds like a good thing for them.
It works. I promise you. They sent me a pack, and look, even just during the summers, it does work wonders. You don't realize how much you got going on until you start to cut it out. But let's pivot to Monty Williams, because he is the man of the hour here. Kind of thinking in the future for him, I wonder what the next step. We've gotten some media day comments. You've been at practice a few days now. We don't know yet what this season will fully look like, but what do you think he sees as the next step? Because he's so big on program, right? He's so big on we're building. The finals trip was ahead of schedule. Yes, we wanted to win it. Yes, we think we were capable of winning it. But at the end of the day, these guys are still young, and I'm still making my mark here. What do you think he sees as the next steps for him as he leads this team?
Well, just big picture is obviously winning the championship, but that's a given. I mean, that's what every team wants to do. But when you get as close as they did, then that's the big picture. Hey, win a championship. And I think with him, one of the things that he talked about, he takes a lot of pride in the fact that they're able to transfer stuff now faster, because now it's his third year. So that whole continuity thing is big for him, and having most of the guys back. I think the next step is not really a step per se. It's to continue that, not have a lot of turnover. He likes what he likes. You know what I mean? So he likes certain players. You can see that. He likes to play a certain way, and he likes to bring in guys that can fit that. And so being able to maintain most of your players to return, I think is big for him, because it eases eases him into things. He doesn't have to stress about that. He doesn't have to worry, okay, well, this guy, does he not know? He's like, okay, well, I got Devin, DeAndre, Cam, Mikal. These guys know what I want from them. Jay's back. Chris is back. Nader's back. So the familiarity is huge for him. So keeping that going, I don't think he wants to have this constant rotation of guys where he's restarting. So I think that's huge for him. But players talk about, like Cameron Payne was saying, that he just that Coach Williams just drew up a play, and they were like, yeah, we've never seen that before. I wouldn't be surprised to see the offense evolve even more. What we're seeing, this could be really vanilla stuff. If you really think about it, it's pick and roll, guys spotting up for threes. You find a guy, or you shoot, or you try to find DeAndre. 0.5 is auto, where they're just moving and cutting and this and that. I think that the offense will, if he continues to have success, will evolve even more, and you'll see things that you haven't seen from him. And whatever that is, whether that's more working 8 and out of the post and things breaking off of him, whether that's he likes the idea of guys outside of, like he was talking about Landry Shamet, and he's saying, hey, I like the fact that he could do some things with the ball and other guys are off the ball. So it's like more playmakers. If you notice, I know you've noticed this, he's always talking about guys making the right play. He wants as many players as possible to be able to go make a play. That's why he puts the ball in Bridges' hands, and you're sometimes watching and going, why is Mikal trying to make a play for somebody else? Well, that's what Monty Williams wants. I think the ultimate goal would be to have 5 guys on the court that could go make a play for each other at all times. I think that's the ultimate would be for him offensively, to where he calls a play and he's got all these options, but he's got 5 guys that if I give it to him, he's going to be able to pass, dribble, shoot. And so if he could get that kind of continuity, because the offense has the continuity as far as running the system. The next step is getting all 5 guys to be at one, to the point where, guys are passing, because they really only have, 2 real playmakers right now. It's Chris and Devin. The goal, I think, for him is to have, like I say, more than those 2, or just more than 2 guys that he can trust that will make a play. And then he's constantly pushing that envelope of play hard, play with force, being pushed to the edge. I can see more of that, because he didn't like the fact that they didn't practice much last year. He was like, this, least amount of practice ever. So now that they're back to this normal schedule, you're going to see
they're going to be practicing more than any team in the league.
You're going to see more practice. So
yeah,
I think those are the next steps for him, finding guys that not only fit his system, but finding guys that can create for each other. And I think the ultimate goal for him to have 5 guys on the floor that can all create for one another. And Aiden talked about today how they're starting to trust him with playmaking situations. So that tells me that Aiden may have the ball where he's having to make a decision on what to do with it. And not that he hasn't done that before, but I mean more of this happening faster.
Yeah.
And Aiden just holding it and looking and looking and looking and looking. And then the shot clock's down to 5 seconds. And he throws it back out and Devin's hoisted up some 3 and then giving him that look like, dude, what is that? So yeah.
No, I think playing a little bit faster, playing that play that went viral in the finals last year when they had, 20 passes.
Right.
Twitter blew up. Everybody, wow, it's the Spurs. And it's like, it's not the Spurs. And I think that's fine because the Spurs had, 3 Hall of Famers, 4 Hall of Famers when they were at their peak in the mid 2010s. So nobody should be saying the Suns should be there, but I think that's the ceiling of where they want to get. And it's going to take some of that young player development, and it's going to take more of the Cameron Payne rejuvenations, frankly, because teams get expensive, right? Like we saw that make such a difference that they were able to find this cheap backup point guard who ended up being able to, be a top 7 guy in a final series. It's going to take Shamet becoming a guy like that, or Jalen Smith, or some player we've never heard of yet or don't think of right now becoming that. And I think that's going to be a different part of Monty's job, but it's going to have to happen because he has to implement the system, but that's already coming along. So now it's, how can we spread that core strategy and culture out to 15 guys, 17 guys, and make that something where you come here and you get better, not just, we're a good team. So I'm really interested to see it because it is a new chapter. He does have a full training camp, but that leads us to some of the bigger questions that I had, more specific questions here as we keep this going. But first, a quick word from Rock Auto, with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models of cars. Look, most people probably couldn't even tell you what car they actually have, let alone what part they're going to need when something breaks down. They don't know if it's an SL versus an SX versus a 2012, 2013. People don't know that. Hey, we have busy lives. We don't know how to keep track of all that stuff. Rock Auto solves that problem for you. You just type in the make and model of your car, scroll down to the part that you need, whatever happened to be broken, click purchase. It's at your door within days. So save 30, 50, even 100% on the same exact part you'd buy at a retail store or dealership by heading over to Rock Auto. Again, that's rockauto.com. And when you make your first purchase, right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Today's show also brought to you by BetOnline.ag. BetOnline is your number one spot for all of your pro and college football betting needs throughout the fall and winter. With a new updated site and interface, you get even more odds, props, and contests at BetOnline.ag. And they continue to be, again, the number one source for pro and college football. Here's what you're going to do to celebrate. Go to betonline.ag, make an account, and when you make your first deposit, you're going to use the promo code NFL100. That's NFL100 all together, all one word, to get a 100% welcome bonus. That's right. They are doubling your money when you use that promo code on your first deposit. From football, basketball, and boxing to your favorite Vegas casino games, betonline.ag is your one-stop shop all season long. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Closing out here with number 2 on our 13 questions that will define the Phoenix Suns season. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single day. And let's close out here, Duane. Something that I just don't think has gotten asked, and I don't know if you have any insight on it. It's random. It's a little bit too far ahead. do you think we could expect extensions for either James or Monty in the coming future? Because that tends to be the coronation of, you get to the championship, even if you don't win it, everybody gets paid, right? And that didn't happen. So I actually don't even know what James Jones's contract structure looks like. I don't know if you do. I believe Monty's in year 2 of 5, so it's a little early for him. But I wonder if you have any thoughts on if we should expect that.
Yeah, this is year 3.
Year 3, yes, year 3, year 3, coming off of year 2. Yeah,
right, coming off of year 2. It was weird because I don't know the exact details of James's contract, but remember he was the assistant GM, and then he was an interim. So an interim was probably around the same amount as the assistant. Probably a little more, but I don't think much more. So now he's the GM, so I gotta believe that he is definitely due. Monty, you gotta look at a couple of things. One, the economy. I know it's crazy because the Suns are got a lot of dollars, but still. We obviously we've gone through something with the pandemic, and that's affected pockets. So I think that's being taken into account.
And the thing with that, like I always try to remind people, and I know you're kind of saying the same thing. It's like these are very wealthy people, these are very big businesses, but at the same time, relatively speaking, the Suns are a smaller team. Robert Sarver is not the billionaire owner that some teams have. Like that is stuff to keep in mind. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I mean, because they're paying a lot of people. And they're gonna have to pay even more, because we know when you're talking about extensions, we know Aiden. I just gotta believe he's going to get one, and Bridges, they're probably gonna have to work some magic in the off season because I don't think you can give. Look, you only can give 2 maxes, so the Booker has 1, Aiden would be obviously the other. But then Bridges, you figure end of the year, they're going to have to do something. If they want to keep him, then you got to pay him. Cam Johnson in the future. Want to keep him, probably have to pay him. You re-up Crowder. Chris, I think this is it's ending the career in Phoenix. I just think, well, if he can get through these 4 years, that obviously that money is there. But if you're going to stay in the championship hunt, you've got to pay players. It's just no getting around it. So
you got to pay everybody. I mean,
right. You got to pay everybody, but you have to pay players, and so Monty is definitely due for extension. I was expecting that to happen this year, to be honest. Coming out after the finals. I thought, well, okay, they might want to bottle him up for longer than where he's at. But that may be something that, after 3 years, if he does, playoffs and they make a decent run or a strong run or get back to the finals or win it all, then that the extension should be coming after that. But I just can't see how you're going to. If those two continue the job that they're doing, I don't see how you can't pay them. Yeah. The question is it going to be some ridiculous number? I don't think so. I just think it'll be extension, more money. But I don't see.
They're not getting the Masai Ujiri deal.
Right. I don't see that. I just don't see that. I don't see it here. So
and I think history shows it's probably never going to come here, right? That's just, in some ways, it's the reality. If you can have sustained success and this market starts to look different and, the media market here and it is a much bigger conversation. As much as we want it to be, you win and you get paid, there are always going to be factors. Those guys knew that when they took this job. They knew that. Right. They know that right now. I honestly wonder, and we both could do digging, and I don't know how much we'd actually find out here, but I almost wonder if Jones has gotten a raise at some point, and we just don't know, because I can't imagine that guy's making the amount of money that he made back when he was, Ryan McDonough's number 2. I cannot fathom that would still be happening, and he shouldn't you shouldn't accept that if that has happened. But to pivot to what you had said about the sort of cooks in the kitchen and, keeping everybody, players, coaches, leadership, where I kind of want to close is that you look in like this offseason. So Trevor Buckstein's been there forever. We have guys like Ryan Resch who have been there for a while under Jones, and there is some continuity. Jeff Feld was there for the past couple of seasons, and these are names people may or may not know, but there are sort of Jones's brain trust. But Jeff Bauer left, right? And you also had over the past little bit, you had Darko Rajakovic leave, and then you also had who just left?
Willie Green.
Willie, yeah, of course. So what I'm getting at here is like it's putting a lot on those two, right? Like they are very much the shepherds of this program at this point in time. There isn't that continuity there. By jumping ahead a little bit with the winning, they also jumped ahead with the poaching that happens. So I wonder, like, do you think that will affect this at all? Do you think, some guys leaving and that change it will affect things? Or do you feel like with those two, it's going to sort of be, continuity and consistency like we've seen?
Well, again, that's why, they talked about it being a shorter off season, and how that's why they hired the assistants that they hired that were familiar with Coach Williams, because, it was like, can't do this gigantic search here. We got to, hey, look, I know him. Okay, I know him. Yeah, I coached him. It's like all these connections here that led to them picking the guy that they picked. That wasn't the only reason, but that was a very huge part of it. So that's, that's a way for them in some way to keep this continuity going. But when you do win, like you said, you do lose guys because other teams go, Willie Green, if the Suns are a 500 team last year and they did what they did the year before, let's say they were just 500 team this year, they got to the playoffs, maybe they did the play-in thing and they played in the first round and lost to Utah.
He doesn't get hired.
Yeah, well, they're going to get hired. He doesn't get hired.
He might not even get interviews.
He definitely doesn't get hired.
Yeah.
He might get an interview or two, but he's not getting hired.
And it's unrelated to whether he deserves it. That's not what happens.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's even Coach Williams admitted, he's like, this is unheard of. A guy 2 years on the bench ends up becoming a head coach. And
he was on the Warriors. He was like what's this video guy up to? He seems interesting. That was only a few years ago we were doing those stories about him. Now he's a head coach. Yeah, it's crazy.
And not only that, not only coaching, but he's coaching like the transcendent talent. Yeah. They basically were saying, okay, we didn't believe in Van Gundy. That wasn't going to work. So we're going to bring you in to figure this out.
Because you're the most different from Stan Van Gundy that there is, right?
We're going to see, can you think? Can you do it? Can you make this happen for us? This guy's such a great player. Can you make him be something? And so something beyond just his talent, someone that you can win with in the NBA. So, I mean, you have those type of situations, and if they're winning at a high level, they're going to, and not only that, just rewinding real quick, Cameron Payne, I'm sorry. I mean, I know he wanted to be there, but they got a bargain. I mean, they got a bargain with this guy. I mean, so when you look at money being spent, and then of course the money was spent on the arena, money that's spent on the practice facility, they got a bargain with Cameron Payne. So that's like one of those moves where he could have bolted. I know somebody else would have paid the guy more. And, Payne's like, well, I went out, I just did a little seeking out, or he almost like he said, I did like a soft feel of where I stood.
Yeah.
And then, but I wanted to play here anyway. So it's like, that's just an example of the type of stuff that they're doing. Whereas if he was somewhere else, and again, Suns were a 500 team, and he did what he did just in the regular season, he'd been out of there, because we can go play for another 500 team and get paid. So the fact that he stayed for the amount he stayed for just speaks to what they're doing with this franchise. It's just crazy. And now, how are they going to, like you say, maintain that, knowing that not only are they going to get poached, in the future if they keep winning like this, but you're going to have to start paying people. How are you going to keep it going? And those two, when Sarver picks up the phone, he's calling those two people and saying, where we at with this? I'm looking at what so-and-so did. I'm looking at what so-and-so did. I'm looking at what so-and-so did. What can we do to keep up with that? Because if you look at the other teams, Brad, I mean, they went out. Like they like the Nuggets paying Michael Porter Jr. Other teams are just like, hey, we're going in because we know what the Lakers did, but then Dallas doing what they did as far as Luka, and all these other teams are making these moves. And then when you stay pat, pretty much like the Suns did, that tells me the team owner is saying, you know what, I trust what y'all have done. Let's go ahead and stick with this.
Exactly. I think that's exactly where I'm at as well. Is it a lot is writing, and it's not just Monty and James. Like, I think you have to include, if we're talking about the whole brain trust, Book and Chris as well.
Right.
And I think those four are really the leadership and kind of the heartbeat, if you want to say that. But it is pressure because it's hard to keep doing this. Like, you look, the Spurs, Pop has, he's had to get, lose a couple here and there, Brett Brown, Mike Budenholzer, but he keeps assistants for a long, long time if he wants to. And I imagine it's because they get paid pretty well to stay there. He has guys in that front office that have been there forever. The Heat, another one, that stability of Riley, Spoelstra, their GM, their assistant GM, guys like Udonis Haslem. Like, you just have to have that. There's no way to just luck into consistent success. Those pillars need to be there. And at the end of the day, these two guys are the biggest pillars, and they're bearing a lot of weight right now. So appreciate you jumping on to talk with me about these two, because I knew you'd be the right guy. I'm glad we had a good conversation about it. And it was fun. You can check him out at Duane Rankin on Twitter. He, of course, is in the Arizona Republic. He is at azcentral.com. writing about the team every single day and doing great work. Thanks for coming on, Duane.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.